Hey guys, it's Bree. I wanted to talk to you really quickly about the first Harry Potter book. As you might know, I am rereading them this month in anticipation of the release of the Cursed Child script. The first book is the Sorcerer's Stone in places other than the US. It's called the Philosopher's Stone. Same book. I was so happy when I reread this. My biggest fear in doing this reread has been that the first couple books would be overly cheesy, and that I wouldn't like them in the same way that I liked them when I was a kid. And to some extent I knew that that would happen because I'm an adult now and I have different things that I look for in books, and I can see the things that she's doing knowing the full story. But I was really, I enjoyed reading this. There are a couple of things that really struck me. The first is that the Dursleys are not as mean as I would have remembered. I mean, they're obviously mean and it's an abusive situation. But at the same time, there's this really overwhelming mundaneness to them. They're really just so, like, typical suburban life kind of folks. And in a way, when they're mean, it's not even necessarily overly mean as much as it is really, really just asserting that mundacity. And that kind of surprised me, especially the entire first chapter follows Vernon Dursley, and he's just so boring. Not in a way that like made reading it boring, but like his character is just dull. And that's an intentional thing that Rowling did that I think I appreciate now that I didn't really probably appreciate as a kid. I really enjoyed the magical setup, the way that she focuses on creating a magical world for you to step into. I think Rowling's description and kind of lead into Harry actually going to Hogwarts was really an interesting part of the book. There are a couple of things that I noticed now as a reread that I didn't notice as a kid, which is kind of like things like the creepiness of Ollivander, right? It's something that I think the movie actually does better for kids than the book does. As a kid watching the movie, I was able to kind of clue in on like, ooh, he's a little weird. But it's not something I necessarily picked up that... I didn't necessarily pick up that subtext as a child in the book, and now going back I can see how she had actually set that up. I have a conflicted feeling because I think Harry's really kind of just a plain Jane character. He's not a kid who's like overly smart, right? I think he's built up to be like this really big genius, and he's really just not. And there are a couple of things regarding that really bothered me. Mostly just that Hermione's kind of put down for being like the study kid, and at the end of the book, of course, she has the line, there are more important things than books, and cleverness, bravery, and friendship are more important. And it just, every time I hear that, it's like a little bit of a stab in the side. If only because I want her to be proud and excited, and they spend the entire first book telling her that she's like a total gunner and like lame. One of the things I also noticed is the Death Day party is not in this book. I thought for a really long time that the Death Day party was in this one, and I was really upset because of course the Death Day party doesn't make it really into the movies at all. But I was kind of confused a little bit when we got past Halloween and it wasn't in there. It was, of course, in the next book. And it also struck me how much, like, Dumbledore must have known what was going on. Like, if there's one person who knows all of the protections for the Sorcerer, Philosopher's Stone, it's obviously going to be Dumbledore, right? Like, he's getting everyone to put, like, protective spells around it. And so, that he didn't immediately, like, kick out Quirrell when there was a troll in the castle, and obviously, like, he must have known that Quirrell had put a troll in as a protector for the Sorcerer's Stone, and, like, not acting on that, like, very clear connection really baffles me. It's one of those things where, like, I think now, looking back, Dumbledore is much more manipulative than I had given him credit for as a kid. And again, like, at the expense of, like, potentially kids' lives. Another thing I noticed was how little the racism kind of aspect of the story is in there. Voldemort is mentioned as being really bad and evil, and there's kind of like a little bit of a head nod at the racism involved in the Muggle-born versus pureblood story, but it's really not very present in this first book. It's something that comes afterwards. And I thought that that was interesting. It makes Voldemort's story make a lot more sense as you go along. And it's kind of interesting to see in this first book him being kind of like a monster of the week character almost. Like, he's bad for almost exclusively just to be bad. So it was interesting to see that and to realize how that's going to grow throughout the story. If you have reread Harry Potter, or if you're reading it for the first time, let me know what you think of the first one. I really enjoyed rereading it. Not only was it kind of a nostalgia trip, but it was just really good to read. You know the drill. Comment, like, and subscribe. I hope you're having a fantastic reading week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.